Alright, yeah! Thank God for fantasy football. I'm Buster Brown, and the show, it's called Redemption Rehab. And if you tuned in today, it's for one reason. It's to start winning championships in fantasy football. Here we are on our website, fantasyfootballredemptionrehab.com. When you get a chance, check it out. Today, we're here talking about our weekly Waiver Wire report, where we help you find impact players week in and week out to help you win a championship in 2020. So buckle up, get out your popcorn, and let's head over to the chalkboard
and check out the facts.
Okay, here we are looking at week 12 of the Waiver Wire report. It's Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all you guys. Hopefully everybody out there is healthy. There are no bye weeks in the NFL, so that's important. So every team is playing. You got teams playing on Thursday. You got teams playing on Sunday, Monday. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people out there trying to make the playoffs. If you think you're going to make the playoffs, you got to start getting your playoff roster ready. That means maybe adding a good defense, adding a good kicker, adding a good quarterback, making sure you have your handcuffs at running back, figuring out how to get somebody like that on your team. Because I tell you what, I've lost championships when I didn't have my handcuff. A couple years ago, I had Todd Gurley at a big money league. I paid like $1,000 to be in this league, and I ended up finishing second because Todd Gurley got hurt, and I had Malcolm Brown as his handcuff, and a guy named C.J. Anderson came in and lit it up, and I didn't have him. And instead of winning a championship, I finished in second because of that one move. So make sure you get your playoff roster ready. You can't do that until you make the playoffs. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is the Waiver Wire report for week 12. And we always start off with our quick hits. Now, quarterback, you can get a guy on your waiver wire in most leagues, Alex Smith for the Washington football team, and he's playing on Thursday against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas's defense is suspect. They've given up a lot of points, and Alex Smith may be able to get you a touchdown, maybe a couple hundred yards passing. It's not much, but if you're in need, maybe he'd be a good guy you can go out and get. Last week we told you about New Orleans situation with Drew Brees out. We told you about Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill came in, put up 25 points in fantasy football. Jameis Winston got a donut. But the NFL teams are going to start to look at this and say, this is how you stop Taysom Hill. And they're going to eventually, possibly have to turn to Jameis Winston. So keep an eye on that situation. I doubt that either one of those guys would be on your waiver wire. And then there's some guys that may have gotten cut. Teddy Bridgewater was on the injury report last week. Some people may have cut him. He's got a juicy matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. And Daniel Jones versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, Cincinnati, I think, might have to give up on this season. No Joe Mixon. Joe Burrows is out. They've got issues on defense. They're deactivating players that are healthy that should be playing. I'm not sure what's going on down there, but I look for the Giants to have a big day against the Cincinnati Bengals, so Daniel Jones is an option. And keep an eye on the whole Chicago Bears situation. They've got a great schedule coming up for the playoffs in fantasy football. So whether it's Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky, you want to look at that because one of those guys may help you win a playoff game later down the road. As far as kickers go, for those that you still do that in your league, I tell you right now, we've been talking about the Buffalo kicker. We told you Tyler Bass is a good player. He's got a juicy matchup this week against this Los Angeles Chargers at home. So, got to keep an eye. It's supposed to be decent, mid-50s. Might be some rain, who knows. But I can tell you right now, kid's going to put up some points. We've been talking about him for weeks. We've been talking about the Atlanta kicker, Young Hoku, and you should go out and get these guys, and even the kicker for Arizona, Gonzalez. We've been talking about those guys for weeks, and you should consider getting them because they keep scoring, double-digit points every week. And if you need a good defense, we already talked about the New York Giants going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. having to start a backup quarterback who isn't playing well with a bunch of people out. So I look for the Giants to score some points against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about running backs that you can get, and we got some juicy picks for you there. So stick around. Okay, here we are back checking out running backs on the waiver wire for week 12 of the NFL season, and we're on a website that we suggest you look at called fantasypros.com. When you get a chance, check them out. And we're talking running backs. And the guy that a lot of people are going to go after, a guy we mentioned most of the year, Gus Edwards. Looks like in Baltimore their starting running backs got COVID-19, so they're only going to have a couple guys on the roster that can run the ball. I suggest you go out and get either Gus Edwards, who's probably going to be a hot waiver wire pickup, or a sleeper pick known as Justice Hill. Both these guys are going to get a chance to play, and Gus Edwards is a guy that can run the ball well. He's more of a brawler, where Justice Hill's more of a scat back that can catch the ball in the backfield. So both of them should play a lot. If you need a running back, I'd go out and get one of those two guys. As far as the New England backfield, I always stay away from it because you never know who's going to have a big game. Rex Burkhead got hurt, and now they got James White, who's probably going to get a ton of catches. You got down here Sony Michel, who's coming back, and they also have Damian Harris. And you never know with Bill Belichick. So I'm sure Sonny Michel's available in your league. Maybe James White. You might want to consider picking those guys up because they're going to get a chance to play this week. Like I said, with the injury to Rex Burkhead. As far as Tony Pollard, I'm not a big fan of this, but he had a big game last week. Ezekiel Elliott's the main man, so we'll have to see about that. I'd rather have Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard is a guy you have to have on your team if you make the playoffs with Ezekiel Elliott. That's his handcuff, and you should have had him on your team all year. Carlos Hyde, don't like that situation up there. Chris Carson's coming back this week, so Carlos Hyde's only going to see minimum action. Cam Akers, crowded backfield with Henderson and Brown. You never know who's going to get the carries there, so I'd stay away from that. Here's an interesting guy, Frank Gore. I do like Frank Gore this week. Michael Perrin is out for 3 weeks. They got a guy named Ty Johnson I would be looking at also. He's more of a catch the ball out of the backfield kind of guy. So between Frank Gore running the ball and Ty Johnson catching the ball, look for the Jets to utilize those two guys. One of them could have a big game this weekend, so you might want to go out and consider picking up one of those two guys. And Tevin Coleman's coming back from IR. That's a crowded backfield with McKinnon and Mostert and Coleman. They're all going to be healthy. Look for the 49ers to run the ball. I'm not sure which one of those guys will have the big game. And they have Kerryon Johnson in here because DeAndre Swift was out. But DeAndre Swift's looking like he's going to play on Thanksgiving. He's got a juicy matchup against Houston. If you can get DeAndre Swift in your lineup, that'd be great. But Kerryon Johnson may be his handcuff. So if you're going to make the playoffs, you might want to have him on your team. Hey, when we come back, we're going to look at wide receivers. We got some guys you want to have on your team this week, so stick around. Okay, here we are in week 12, checking out the waiver wire report for wide receivers. And we start out with this guy on fantasypros.com, which is Deebo Samuels. Look, he was hurt for about 3 or 4 weeks, been hurt all year. Somebody may have got frustrated and cut him. Make sure he's not on your waiver wire because I would definitely pick him up for sure. He's going to have a good rest of the season. As far as Michael Pittman Jr. had a big touchdown last week. We told you to pick him up all year, basically. And here he is on the waiver wire, only owned in 43% of the leagues. Go get him if he's on your waiver wire. And, of course, Sterling Shepard just might be a number 1 receiver on the Giants. He's got a juicy matchup against Cincinnati. If he's on your waiver wire, go out and get him. He does get hurt a lot, so be careful with that. Nelson Agholor plays for the Raiders. He's had a pretty good season. He used to play for Philadelphia. We've been telling you for weeks to go get him. He had another big game last week against the Chiefs. He's got a juicy matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. He's probably going to score. The Raiders like to run the ball, but this seems to be their best wide receiver other than their tight end. And Jalen Reagor for Philadelphia. We've told you for weeks to go get this guy. He's a decent wide receiver. Probably not going to get more than 3 or 4 catches in a game. But, hey, if you're hurting at wide receiver, he might help you. Jalen Reagor for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you got Sammy Watkins right here. He's coming back from injury at a hamstring. They're getting him ready for a playoff run. I temper my expectations with Sammy Watkins because I really think that they're trying to get him healthy for when they make the playoffs. Sammy Watkins seems to have great playoff games every year for the Chiefs, and I think that that's what they're going to try to do. So I'm not sure how much he'll play the rest of the year prior to the playoffs. And Josh Reynolds, we told you about him last week because he had a big game the week before, and this is his MO, man. He has a big week and then you don't hear from him again. So be careful with him. And we've been talking about Rashad Perriman for, since he's been healthy. And the thing about Rashad Perriman is he has a big week. He had a touchdown, like 46-yard touchdown in week 11. But he doesn't do it every week. And if you put him on your team and you play him, man, it's like rolling the dice. So he either has a big week or he doesn't, and that's just who he is. And he's signed a big contract, 1-year contract with the Jets. And if he doesn't have a big final, 4 or 5 games here coming up at the end of the season, he's not going to get a big contract next year. So look for him to have a decent end of the season run. We're going to show you some sleeper wide receivers for you deep leagues out there, so stick around. Okay, here we are back. We're going to check out some sleeper picks at wide receivers. This time of year, like I said, some teams hold their veterans till later in the season so they're healthy heading into the playoffs. And that's what you have when you have people like Larry Fitzgerald down here. Larry Fitzgerald had like 8 catches, 60, 70 yards last week when he played against Seattle. That's a pretty good, 14, 15 points out of Larry Fitzgerald. Is he going to do it every week? Probably not, but they got to get this guy ready for the playoffs. If the Arizona Cardinals make the playoffs, he's going to be part of that. You might want to have him on your team. Another guy we really like, how about Demir Byrd for the New England Patriots? Patriots are fighting for a playoff spot. They have nobody to throw the ball to. Julian Edelman might be on your waiver wire. If he is, go out and get him because he's been out for a month. But so is Demir Byrd. Demir Byrd had like 10 catches for over 100 yards last week, and that's his MO. He has a big game, and then you don't hear from him for 2 or 3 weeks. That's who he is, and that's what he does. We like these guys also. Denzel Mims, New York Jets, came back, only had 3 catches for like 40 yards, but he had like 8, 9 targets. He's a rookie, so be careful with him. He's going to be fighting for playing time with the guy we just mentioned, Perryman. Rashad Higgins for Cleveland. This is an interesting guy because they're going down to Jacksonville. Cleveland's banged up on defense. I was going to recommend their defense against the Jags, but they're without Myles Garrett. He's not playing this week, and they've got their top cornerback, Ward. He's out this week, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a high-scoring game. And Higgins is probably going to have to be one of the main guys to catch the ball if that is a high-scoring game. Jacksonville's given up on the season, but they're still competing. Luton is a quarterback who's trying to compete for a starting job next year. Good luck with that, seeing how you might have a number 1 or 2 pick going into next season's NFL draft. But we do like Higgins. Russell Gage is a player this week because of the injury to Julio Jones. Julio Jones tweaked his hamstring again. That's the problem with drafting Julio Jones in rounds 1 and 2. Is he's questionable every week. He has been this year every week, and we told you that prior to drafting him. And here he is going into this week questionable again because he tweaked his hamstring. And Russell Gage picked up the slack last week when they played down in New Orleans. He had a good 15, 16 fantasy points because Julio Jones was out. And we told you about Keelan Cole last week. Be careful with that guy. They're getting healthy down there, but they're trying to lose. When we come back, we're going to show you some picks we like at tight end, so stick around. Okay, here we are back checking out tight ends for the waiver wire for week 12 on fantasypros.com. The tight end that I kind of like this week is still Jordan Reed. We told you about him last week and the week before and the week before. He's had 2 good games this year, one a couple weeks ago and one at the beginning of the season because George Kittle's out. Well, George Kittle's out for probably the rest of the regular season, and Jordan Reed's healthy. He's on like a 1-year veteran contract. He wants another contract from somebody, whether it's San Francisco or someone else. So look for him to ball out the rest of the year. So if you need a tight end, why not Jordan Reed? He does get hurt a lot. I'll warn you right now. Chances of him surviving the whole season are probably 50-50. But if you can get it, you need a tight end, go out and pick him up. Last week we told you to avoid Dalton Schultz, and he went out and scored a touchdown at the end of the game, helped win the game. Before that, he wasn't doing anything, but he did get lucky at the end of the game, gave him double-digit fantasy points. Could happen again this week. Wouldn't count on it. Washington football team has a good defense, but then again, I didn't expect him to get a touchdown last week, and he did. So he might be someone to consider. The whole Houston situation with their tight ends, Jordan Aiken and Darren Fells. Darren Fells had a good game 2 weeks ago. Jordan Akins had a good game this last week. So which one do you pick up and which one do you play? Chances are one of their tight ends is going to score a touchdown against Detroit on Thanksgiving. Question is which one. So if you need a tight end and you want to basically flip a coin, I would try Jordan Akins, and maybe he'll be the one that gets the touchdown instead of Darren Fells. As far as Richard Rodgers goes, I really like Richard Rodgers. I told you to pick him up earlier in the year when Zach Ertz got hurt and Dallas Goedert was out, and he went out and balled out. But when Dallas Goedert came back, Richard Rodgers didn't catch a ball his first game when Dallas Goedert came back, and last week he comes in and scores a touchdown against Cleveland. There's a chance he could score and catch 2 or 3 balls without Zach Ertz there. But Dallas Goedert's the main guy, so if you really need a deep sleeper at tight end, Richard Rodgers would be the guy, but I wouldn't count on double digits. He might catch 2 or 3 balls, maybe get in the end zone, but it's not like
Well, there you have it. We gave you all the impact players we promised to help you fill out your rosters this week in fantasy football. I'm Buster Brown. The show is called Redemption Rehab. Good luck.